This is Fritzi Huber, and I work predominantly in handmade paper. These pieces came about during COVID at the beginning and into the first 6 months, and I had been really distraught like most of us were and a little depressed, and the previous work had been a bit angry, and I was sitting out on the back deck and it started to rain, and the rain coming down the redbud tree and onto the leaves of the redbud had a very soothing effect, and I realized that what I had not been reflecting on was nature and the healing properties of nature in the world around me. And so this body of work came out of that. One of the things about the staining in the background of these is I wanted them to have a sense of time having passed, of being older, of maybe having been found, and having evidence of their past and their experiences embellished on the surface. I have actual prints from the redbud leaves on these. I have previous paintings that were a little bit tumultuous. I like to layer, so the tumult is layered over with a calming pattern and a more calming palette. And those lenticular shapes that are vertical, those are reflective of the rain that was occurring on that day when that peacefulness came about and that sense of healing came about. These works are mixed media, so we have varieties of handmade paper, printmaking, dyes, acrylic, gouache, some airbrush, and a lot of the patterning comes from facing paper to paper and the other papers having color on them. And I feel that the deckled edge of the handmade paper gives a sense of something new and something old simultaneously. The piece to the right actually has an antique silk in it from the 1930s, that rose pattern there, because I wanted to bring something forward into it that had actually existed in the past and not in the present. These papers are all unsized, which means that they don't have anything to protect them from the water seeping through and going to the other side. So I do this thing that I call bruising, for lack of a better term, because I'll force color in from behind, and because there's no sizing in the paper, that will come up like a blush or like a stain from underneath the paper. So rather than being applied to the surface, it emerges from underneath. The dots on there are actually because I cast the paper on a piece of pegboard, so they do have a relief to the surface. And when you're making the paper yourself, it's a little bit like clay. It'll take on whatever surface you cast it on. So if I wanted something that looked like lace, I would cast it on lace. This one, I just wanted that all over staggering dot pattern to feel more like maybe dew or rain or an element of movement that had to do with the atmosphere. This is part of the first two of looking at the rain and moisture coming off of the redbud. So those are all redbud leaves, the ones that have the print on them. So what I did is dry the leaves, press the leaves like you would a pressed flower, and then instead of inking them up, I did a dry brush acrylic on the surface and made the prints, and then cut those out and collaged them on. There are a lot of collage elements on here. The painting was done previously, and then these pieces collaged over the top. The green is actually a Japanese paper, Mitsumata, that I liked its transparent qualities, like water having a transparency. I moved out here in 1987, but I had applied for a artist in residence grant in California, and I didn't expect to get it. So after moving out, I had to go back to California and live in residence there to fulfill the grant. So I don't feel like I actually moved here until '89. There were 2 years of transition. And that was from Southern California. I had been there for 17 years. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. And Michelle Connolly is the one who convinced me to get a studio here. She saw that I was trying to make paper at home and, outdoors, and that's just so dependent on the weather. And so she convinced me to come, and I've been here since then. But I've been a hand paper maker now for 45 years. It's a collaboration with the surface rather than a total dictation to the surface. But I have it planned out in stages, and at a certain point I have to let it go and let it talk to me. So I'm going to wait after this point for the response and for the piece to speak to me. And if I get too anxious about it, I'll put it on the walls where I can't touch it and just catch it out of the corner of my eye and come back and respond when it speaks to me.